The Monster Ballad Mullet. So we'll start with the Monster Ballad Mullet description. Do you want to take that?
Yeah, so it's where we put Jesus in the front by talking about love and marriage, which are biblical concepts, but it keeps the party in the back by bankrupting the biblical concepts and redefining them to be synonyms with the ideas of the culture. So basically robbing the biblical truth of marriage and relationships and infusing the ideas of the culture that couldn't be further from biblical ideas in marriage and relationships.
And to be clear, this happens everywhere.
Yes.
There is nowhere on the earth this doesn't happen. The difference in the cultural South is that many times that advice about love and marriage you get that is so counter-biblical comes from the church or from people in the church or from good people who claim to be followers of Christ. Will give you basically the same advice that you would get from a 80s love song. And we don't need to get our advice on love and romance from an 80s love song. But it so permeates the culture, and we're big fans of marriage for good reason, but then the two kind of start to merge together. So that's the Monster Ballad Mullet. So Monster Ballad Mullet on love and romance. What does it have to say? And these go back, as we read these, I want you, and it really, we're picking on the 1980s. The only reason we're picking on the 1980s is because of the mullets, the hair, the big hair bands and all that. But you could go to the 50s, the 60s, you could go to the 90s, you could go to the 2000s, you could turn the radio on today and hear these same ideas being sung. You could actually read Shakespearean poems and see these same ideas being portrayed. So this is something that is communicated to us through art, not just through songs. It comes through in television and all those things too, but we wanted to kind of highlight what they say in songs. So you can think about the music that was popular when you were in high school, and you can see these same ideas.
Yeah, love is a feeling. Even more than that, it's a rush of emotions, exciting and electrifying. There's no feeling like it. It's the ultimate high.
And then once true love is found, once you find your one, or once you find your soulmate, then you must pursue it at all costs. So this is not just in the ballads of the 1980s. I mean, this is in Disney movies, right? You've got to pursue that one true love with all of your heart, because once you find it, you've got to pursue it.
And moral and traditional boundaries must not stop love. Those things are not a part of the equation. True love trumps everything else. So you should forget all of your reasoning, forget all of your logic, forget all of your understanding, and just pursue that emotional connection.
How many times in music and then in movies too is there this love, this romance that's portrayed that the parents disapprove of, but they don't understand how strong true love is?
We just talked about this today. I was talking about it with the kids because they wanted to watch something on TV, and so we were talking about choices of what they could watch. And I said, the thing about it is we have to be so aware that everything has a message. Mm-hmm. And even something, because they were talking about it's rated G, so we should be able to watch it no problem. So that doesn't matter, because there are still messages coming to you through those stories that may or may not really be the kind of messages that would line up with the truth, and they're affecting you one way or the other. And so we talked about the movie The Little Mermaid, and I watched that movie as a kid, and our kids have seen that movie, but the movie is all about a 16-year-old daughter rebelling against her father and rebelling against his rules and authority, and basically selling her soul to evil in order to get what she wants. And it all works out with the pretty rainbow at the end. And so that is not a healthy message for our kids to watch. And so the older I become, and the more real I see these things being, the battles I see my kids fighting, it makes me wish I had never ever watched that movie, and that they had never ever watched that movie. Because
I watched that movie very differently as an adult parent than I did as a kid. As a kid, you're like, oh, come on, King Triton, get off her back.
Boo.
As an adult, I'm like, young girl, you get back home right now. But you understand, okay, that message. Why? Because true love. Right. Oh, she's found true love, so she's got to abandon all social norms, all rules, because true love. In fact, denying true love is immoral. So if you deny true love, then that's kind of the ultimate sin according to the monster ballad Mullet. What about, here's a line from This Could Be the Night. And one of the things you need to do with your music, turn it off and read the lyrics.
Just Google search the lyrics of the song and read it in
read
black
them.
and white.
So here it is in black and white. I'm holding out my hand, I finally understand. So turn out the lights, we'll make it last forever. You found what was locked up inside of me. This could be the night to remember. We'll make it last forever. This could be the night to end all nights. So if we'll just turn the lights out, we'll create something eternal, our true love. And this will be the night to end all nights. Well, just try to square that with Scripture. I mean, you can't square that with Scripture in any way. But this is the message. And we just chose one song. I mean, how many other songs? Heaven Isn't Too Far Away. I remember hearing that as a kid and going, wait a second, you shouldn't be talking about heaven that way. Because for them, heaven isn't too far away. They're talking about a romantic sexual relationship. And we can have heaven if we would just take a risk. And that's such an anti-biblical message. It's being poured into our minds if we're not careful.
And the danger, I think specifically with music, is that it does have such an emotional trigger for us that when you hear somebody who has an excellent singing voice, I mean, we just talked about it. You know, Voices of Mobile, when they performed on Sunday night, it triggered our emotions. It was amazing. It was an amazing experience because of what they were singing, made it even more amazing. But, you know, they sang the national anthem in a way that made us all probably tear up. You know, and that's just the national anthem. That has no bearing on the actual eternity of our souls. And so, but when you think about it, that music really does have the ability to shape our thinking and to create an emotional response within us that will really almost chemically affect us.
We've got to move quickly. Got just a few minutes left to cover this, and then y'all can have some good discussion on this. The monster ballad on sex. Sex is the ultimate human experience and the ultimate expression of true love. If it's not the ultimate experience, then you're not with the right person. And if the spark is gone, it is time to move on. Think about how first of all, think about how true that is in the world of the monster ballad. Think about if there's no spark there, then you're with the wrong person. Now think about how dangerous that is for what Scripture teaches about marriage. Paul, you mentioned it earlier. We're talking about arranged marriages in the Bible. When Paul said, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church, he was not writing to high school sweethearts. He was writing to a man and a woman whose parents decided that they should get married, and they might not have ever met each other. But biblical love is not, oh, I feel a spark, and so now I'm going to make sure this spark stays forever. And if the spark leaves, then it must be over. Roxette, it must have been love, but it's over now. It must have been good, but I lost it somehow. It must have been love. Y'all can sing it if you want to, but it's over now. From the moment we touched till time had run out, it's where the water flows, it's where the wind blows. So it must have been love because it was so amazing and it felt so good. But whatever that love was has blown away with the wind and has been washed away with the water. Well, if that has happened, then it was not love. So Roxette was wrong. It must not have been love. Mullet sightings. I'm going to move through these. Actually, just kind of skip over these. It's kind of some of the same things that we've said, except for the last one. You will hear this. Unfortunately, as a pastor, I have heard this. Lindsay has heard this when we've counseled other people. You need to do what makes you happy. If you're not happy, then he or she is not right for you. If you're not happy, why would you stay in a loveless marriage? Now, we expect to hear that from the culture. We expect to hear that from non-Christians. We expect for monster ballads to tell us that, and for the Backstreet Boys to tell us that, and for 1950s rock to tell us that, and for 2000s rap to tell us that. We should not hear that in the church. That should not be the advice you get in the church. Lindsay and I have heard that on more than one occasion, multiple occasions in pastoral counseling. That, well, what people are telling me, I've got other Christians are telling me that if I don't feel in love anymore, then that God would not want me to stay in a loveless marriage.
Doesn't God want me to be happy?
Doesn't God want me to be happy? Well, that's such a misunderstanding of what love is in the first place. So some of the dangers, you want to walk through some of the dangers?
Some of the dangers of the monster ballad mullet would be that they lead to broken marriages, broken homes, empty and unfulfilled lives, and it doesn't take too much intentional thought to see that that's where the end of the road would be. It's lending itself toward broken relationships. Young adults and teenagers and even children buy into the lie that they should be in search of true love. And I mean, I really believe we see this. We see an epidemic of this, that this is the standard that's held in front of them as what relationships should look like, even at such young ages, and that they believe that if that's not happening in their life, then something's wrong. And then Christian marriages suffer when marriage is pursued according to the principles of the culture around them. So many couples finally find themselves wanting to get serious with the Lord and pursue the Lord in their family and their marriage, but it wasn't set on the foundation of biblical principles, and so they have a lot of back work to do in order to be able to live their marriage out in a way that really reflects biblical living.
So, Mullet Makeover, how do you reshape your theology? First is submit to Christ, not your feelings. Your feelings change, Jesus doesn't. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And then, I am the way, the truth, and the life. If you want to know where fulfillment is, it is not in finding that person that you have the spark with, your soulmate, your must-have-been-loved person. No, it is in finding your way, your truth, and your life in Jesus. If you find your soulmate, one of the things Lindsay and I will say sometimes to couples is, if you're looking for your soulmate and you're married, guess what? You found them. There is your soulmate. The moment you say I do in front of God and those witnesses, that is your soulmate. And, well, I think I missed marrying my soulmate. I think I dated my soulmate when I was a sophomore in high school, and I should have stayed with him, and now I married the wrong guy. You didn't marry the wrong guy. You married a man, and now that man is your forever man. You married a woman, and now that woman is your forever woman. And it's not, oh, well, the spark is gone, so I think I need to go back and I think I messed up God's plan for the universe. And we don't have time to really unpack that, but if you just think through that, you're not that powerful. Well, God had a plan for my life, and I guess I am going to unpack it. Sometimes I say we don't have time to unpack it, and then unpack it. But, God had a plan for my life, and I was supposed to marry person A, but I married person B, and I really messed it up. Well, what happened to the person that person B was supposed to marry? Did you mess that up? And then you and person B had children, but actually you and person A were supposed to have children. So now there's some humans that exist that weren't supposed to exist, according to your theology. And then there are some other children that didn't exist because of whoever person A ended up marrying. They had children they weren't supposed to have. And now what if children A, and B get married somehow, and then there's even more mess? Like, do you really think that you're that powerful? God had a plan, but I married the wrong person. You're not that powerful. You cannot undo God's plan. So if you're married to person B, then person B is actually person A. And that is your person. And you are absolutely committed to them. And that is your lifelong soulmate. Not the one you let go in 10th grade. That's not your soulmate. Now, does that mean divorce doesn't happen and things don't happen? No, obviously those things happen. But you can't look and say, well, I heard a love song today and I've never felt that way about my husband, so I must be married to the wrong person. Or I heard a love song, I've never felt that way about my wife, and that's my problem. I'm married to the wrong woman. No, you're not. That's not how that works. So you've got to submit to Christ, not to your feelings. And then learn life-giving truths by repeating them over and over and over. I'm actually going to let you cover this after I leave, because I know that
we'll
is
come back to that.
part of something you really are passionate about. And then love with your actions, not just your heart. I was thinking about Urkel.
Yeah.
Y'all know Urkel?
Oh, yeah.
Who does Urkel love? Laura. He never wavers. She has no feelings for him. But over cheese, he also loves cheese. Over how many ever years, he just, what does he say? I'm wearing you down.
baby.
Anyway, so he, and I was thinking, man, there is a guy who said, I will serve this person. And regardless of her love for me, I will just love her because I'm committed to her. So I'm not exactly sure that's biblical love, but it's a lot closer
And
than
we're not
Monster.
fully endorsing Family Matters.
We are not, no. But love with your actions, not just your heart. Greater love has no man than this, than someone lay down his life for his friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. Did you hear that? You are my friends if you do what I command you. That's an interesting. No, me and Jesus are good. I don't really follow him. I don't get into all those command things. No, Jesus is just my friend. Now, Jesus says, here's how you know if you're my friend. If you do what I command you. There it is in John chapter 15. And then there's the Ephesians 5. This, I've already mentioned it, this advice given to people who most of them were in arranged marriages. How is love defined? Love is defined by the fact that you take action to love your wife as Christ loved the church. How did Christ love the church? Romans chapter 5, verse 8. God demonstrated his love towards us, and that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. That is love. Not that God had all these great feelings for us and wrote a ballad for us. It is that God took action. And that is the basis of Christian love. And that is nowhere to be found in, maybe it is, Ain't No Mountain High Enough. Maybe. Ain't no mountain.
You're the
high
lyric
enough.
man, so
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, but that is the monster ballad mullet. Now, this mullet is so common in our culture that we kind of say the right things. Oh, love is an action. But we operate more off of must have been love, but it's over now.
Right.
And that's where the mullet comes in. Jesus in the front. We know the right thing to say. Love is an action. Party in the back. We really operate off our feelings.
Yeah.
And we actually, that can be, if we're not careful, reinforced in the church. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes it a mullet theology, because it gets woven into the church.
And how many couples are we encouraging in their pursuit of marriage to really think through the character of the person that they're pursuing marriage or that's pursuing them? How many couples are we encouraging them to think through what it would look like to live committed to that person for the rest of their life? Or are we just saying, oh, he's so cute. Oh, she's so pretty. Oh, he seems like he's going to be really successful. Or she's going to be a good mom one day. What is it that we're looking, not that those things aren't great things to commend someone for, but is that why you would choose to commit your life to a person? So more times than not, the choice is made off of appearances, off of emotions, off of connection. Think about any dating show you've ever watched, all the way back to, whatever the first dating show was. But all the blind date shows and the Bachelor, Bachelorette, all those things, the connections are made in 30 minutes and they think that they're in love, right? They think that there's going to be a lifelong relationship there. But in reality, what Scripture teaches us is that love is faithfulness. Love is endurance. Love is staying the course and finishing the race and being committed. And so when we think about what Christ did for us, when he demonstrated his love for us, that demonstration was out of him not giving up. He did not give up loving us when he could have. When he could have gotten off the cross, he could have stopped carrying that cross. He could have done a billion things to stop loving us in that moment, but he chose to continue to love us. And what was that? What did that look like? That looked like faithfully following the course of action that demonstrated love for us. And that's what it looks like in a marriage too. It looks like faithfully enduring the course of action to show your love for that person, being committed to them. And think about our wedding vows that we say, for richer, for poorer, for sickness, for health, and those traditional wedding vows. What that communicates is we are here to serve and love the other person, just like it says in Ephesians. We are here to put ourselves second or third or fourth even, consider the other person more significant than ourselves. That's what Scripture teaches about love, and we don't see that. And I think it's more than just us not seeing that. We don't celebrate that. We don't encourage people to look for those things when they're pursuing marriage and thinking about the options of marriage. Instead, these are the things that creep in, and these are the things that take priority when people are of varying age or in a relationship. Let's go back and look at the life-giving truths. So the idea of, if you want to truly believe something, know something, remember something, how can we do that? We do it by repetition. We do it by repeating it over and over and over again. Why is it that we can all say the Pledge of Allegiance? Why is it that we can all sing our ABCs? It's because we've repeated that thing over and over and over again throughout the course of our life. So it's there, it's stuck. So the idea of, if there are truths that you want to remember, you should just repeat them. You should put them where you're going to see them all the time. You should listen to them. You should write them. Any way that you can interact with them, do that. So here's a list of some ideas for you on, maybe you think, you know what, some of these lies have crept into my life, my family life, my home life, my car, and I need to make some changes. Well, here are some options of some ideas for you. First, and I know many of you are already checking this one off your list, but regularly attend worship in small group and serve at your local church. Change your playlist to songs that have rich theology. And this one, I think, is really, we live in a time where we have the ability to choose the songs that we listen to. I mean, there was a time where, it came on the radio and you wanted to hear it again, and too bad it's gone. But that's not the time we live in. It's a really cool thing that we can actually choose the music that we listen to and put it on repeat. And we can listen to it in our homes and in our car and at work. So it's really awesome that we have that opportunity to do that. So be intentional to choose songs that are going to pour into your soul and teach you these truths by listening to the lyrics over and over again. And we're not even, Christian radio is not even a given for that. There are times where Christian radio fails to give us rich theology. So choosing a playlist that's intentional, especially if there's a specific area of truth that you feel like, you know what, I'm really weak in understanding about God's love or about relationships, or finding songs that speak to that, would be great to do that. Fill your home with meaningful scripture passages through artwork, chalkboards, sticky notes. And this is a favorite of mine. I learned hand lettering about 1.5 years ago, and I feel like every blank wall is a canvas for me now. I'm looking for ways to write pretty things all over my house, but I choose scripture to do that. We have cards everywhere. When we're memorizing the scripture for the week, I've got cards up that have the verses on them, and it's everywhere so that we see it. And there's something about, if, joyful noise, that poster that's on the back wall. If that was in your home, you would remember it. We have the fruit of the Spirit in our kitchen, and you see it all the time in daily life. It just becomes a part of what you know. You don't even realize it. And there's a Berenstain Bear book. I don't know if you guys know Berenstain Bears, but one of their little books talks about the golden rule, and Mother Bear starts telling Sister Bear about the golden rule, and she's like, oh, I remember hearing that. I read it. It's up above our fireplace. It's on a little cross stitch. And she's like, yes. So, she didn't even, before she knew what it was or what it meant, she had seen the words and read them as a kid over and over again. So it connected with her. So find ways, and Hobby Lobby's a great first stop if you're not artsy craftsy. They've got a whole shelf for you of things that are already pre-made that have scripture on it that you can put in your house. And so this is something we did, I want to say, right about the time we moved here, we really wanted to shift even the way that we used the walls in our home. And one by one started taking things down that had no eternal significance and replaced it with something that had biblical truth so that our family would thrive by being surrounded by that. Use filtering services like VidAngel or ClearPlay when you're watching videos or shows. So you can take the things out that would be tempting to lead us to think about some of these ideas that are not biblical. You can also filter your devices through things like Covenant Eyes or Net Sanity. There's an app that we have just recently added about 1 year ago called Accountable to You that you can use with all of your devices and everything, which is really helpful. So I would highly recommend that, especially with children in the home, but even not for the kids, but for everybody. It's something that we all need. Pluggedin.com is a really great resource for parents or grandparents when you're trying to determine what an appropriate movie or TV show would be for them to watch. The website, you can type in whatever movie you're looking for. So, for instance, last night Meredith wanted to watch Saving Mr. Banks. So I typed in Saving Mr. Banks, and what happens, it comes up an entire synopsis of the movie, and they'll even tell you if there are spoiler alerts in there, but it gives you a rating for children, for teens, and for adults. It'll say like a green light will say light, a yellow light will say medium, and a red light would say heavy, and those are the warning levels for those ages, and it tells you if there's any sexual content or violence or graphic content or drug use or any of those things. So you can really look and see, is this movie safe for our children? And it also gives you a lot of the underlying themes of the movie, so you can kind of see, is there any kind of agenda being pushed in this movie that I want to be, not that every single time you would say no about the movie, but at least you would know, hey, when we watch this movie, we're going to have this conversation about this specific topic, and it can springboard a really great conversation, just like Little Mermaid did with our family. Frequent sites like desiringgod.org or the Gospel Coalition to find articles to help you direct your thinking on certain topics. And then, of course, podcasts can be really helpful. Derek and I host a podcast, if you're not aware of that. It's called The Christ-Centered Life. And we talk about all different kinds of topics of just how you can live your life in a Christ-centered way. And there are lots of other great podcasts out there, too, that can help you to be able to apply Scripture to your life. But desiringgod.org is my go-to. If somebody says, hey, what do you think about this topic? I go there and I'll find articles, podcasts, just all kinds of great resources about the topic, and it's just a really solid source that can, rather than just going straight to Google and looking for something, it's better to go to a site that you can trust. The things that they're going to show you are going to be sound doctrine to be able to think through and help shape your thinking. And then throw away the smutty romance novels and read books that are going to inspire you to have authentic Christ-like love. And this is something that I think is easily skipped over. We clearly know that X-rated movies are pornography. We clearly know that things, websites and things on social media that can pop up is not good. But I think sometimes people give books a pass and they think, well, if I'm just reading words, that's not pornography. But what's happening in your mind when you're reading those books, it is the exact same, because your mind is creating the images doesn't mean that it's not sinful and that it's not harming you, just because your mind is what's creating the images. So I would strongly encourage you to not only put away what is damaging, but put on what is life-giving, and find literature that is going to feed your soul and is going to encourage these kinds of ideas that Scripture would teach us. And we can help you with that if you need some ideas. And then use tools like Fighter Verses, or what's the one we use? Versify. That one's free, so that's been really helpful for a lot of our people. A journal or note cards to help you memorize Scripture. Memorizing Scripture is one of the best tools we have against fighting temptation. And when we look at this idea of mullet theology, and particularly with monster ballad theology, it is a huge temptation. It is a temptation for us to view romance and relationships in a way that is on the path of death and not on the path of life. And the enemy knows that if he can convince us of this lie, that this is what relationships are supposed to be, that this is what marriage is about or not about, and he can convince us against the truth, then he has won that battle. So how do we fight lies? We fight it with knowing the truth. And so learning what Scripture really does say and hiding it in our hearts and having it as a tool against the enemy. I mean, we all know that's how Jesus fought the enemy, and when he was tempted was by quoting Scripture to him. So if we know it, then we can do the same thing. I kind of want to go back as we finish up and maybe have a little more discussion at the end, but I kind of want to go back and think about this idea of how love is about faithfulness. And when we think about biblical love, it's about enduring, not giving up, being faithful. When we were at the convention last week, we ran into Derek's professor, who literally holds the yes or no to his graduation in his hands. I mean, he's his reader for his dissertation, and if he gives a thumbs up, it's all good. If he gives a thumb down, we keep trudging. He keeps trudging. I keep patting him on the back and saying, "You're doing great." But it's been a long road for him. This PhD that he's working on has been very, very difficult, and it's been difficult to discern what he's really supposed to be doing. It's been very hard. And as the person not getting the initial correspondence and not knowing anything about what he's really doing, I find myself even more frustrated, because I'll get the feedback secondhand from Derek, and I'll say, "But didn't he say that you should do this? But when you did it, he said you should do the opposite of that." He's like, "Well, not exactly." So I was having a hard time with a lot of his feedback too. And so he was at the convention, and I got to meet him. Derek introduced him to me. Sweetest man. I mean, he and his wife were just sweetest people. They've adopted like a gazillion kids, that probably would have been orphaned for the rest of their lives if it hadn't been for them. So they're just godly people. But in my mind, this is the dude that can tell us, green light, you get to graduate. And so we're having the conversation, and he was telling his wife, this is one of my students. He's working on his dissertation with a discourse analysis for Hebrews, and he's been working so hard. And he said, he looked to Derek. He said, "You're graduated in May, right?" And Derek said, "I was really hoping for December." He's like, "Oh, okay." And he said, "So I just want to tell you, what you're doing is good." And you just have to know about the correspondence with this man this entire time. So Derek and I know we're both thinking the same thing. Oh, does that mean the last thing he turned in was good? Like, we're going to keep going. This is good. What does it mean by that? And he said, "I just want to encourage you. What you're doing is good." And he said something else of a different subject. And then he came back to it, and he said, "I want to go back to that. When I said what you're doing is good, what I meant was the struggle. The struggle is good." I was like, "Does that mean he's not doing good? What do you mean? Just tell me." But he said, and it's so true, he said, the good is in the struggle. The good is when things are hard. And he said, and I don't just mean your schoolwork. He said, I mean your whole life. You're parenting, you're pastoring your church, you're trying to do this dissertation, you're doing mission work, you're all these things, and they're hard, and you're doing them. And you're waking up the next day, and you're doing them again. And you're just continuing to be faithful to do the thing that you're supposed to do, and that is good. And he said there is a lot to be said about the endurance and the joy of just one day after the other doing the thing that you're supposed to do. And so that has really been playing over and over in my mind, that conversation of what he said and how important it is for us, and not just in marriage, in a lot of the hard aspects of our life, that as believers we are people called to persevere. I mean, that's what the entire book of Revelation is really about, is God's people will persevere. We will finish the race and finish it well. And it's not an if, it is a promise. If you're a child of God, you have that. You have that promise. That applies to our marriages. So will every day of marriage feel like Snow White and the birds are all singing and you're talking to the animals and you understand what they're saying and everything's just perfect? They bring you the apple pie and it's just beautiful. No, that's not it. And if that's what we're looking for, we're searching after something that is so empty that even if we find it, we're not going to be fulfilled. But what God offers us is something that really is life-giving and really does have eternal weight and eternal value. And it's the kind of race that when we endure every single day, we wake up and realize it really is good. What we're doing really is good. So let's talk about that for just a minute. Looking through this list, what is something that you see just right off the bat that you could incorporate or maybe go back to? Maybe it's something that you have done before but really have not been careful to guard in your life on the ways to repeat life-giving truths over and over and over again.
I would use the filters on what you're watching, because that's so easy just to not flip it or
Yeah.
just it comes off.
Have you ever used either of these?
I have not.
Okay,
And I haven't
so-
used them with my kids.
So VidAngel and ClearPlay both, I think, have ways where I get them confused. I want to say it's ClearPlay. You have to, it's streaming. It works through streaming services, but it'll tell you, man gets shot in head, or these words. Like, you can individually choose to take all those things out, or you can just say all language and toggle the thing and it'll say all these words, or you can individually choose the words, or individually choose the scenes that it'll say. Man passionately kisses woman. It will kind of somewhat describe to you what you're choosing to remove from the film or the show, in a way that's not like you're reading this smutty romance. So it's very kind of general. Or you can just say all nudity. You can do the toggle the switch, and any nudity would be removed. Or violence. It'll sub-list everything, or you can just say all violence will be removed. So
how does that work? I mean, like,
So some shows you only get 10 minutes of it. But that's right. So with VidAngel, it used to be a subscription, and then you would go to their website and you would watch the thing through their website. Then there was a big lawsuit that happened, and they had to change the way they did it. So we haven't used VidAngel since they've reformatted how they do their thing, but we use ClearPlay now. So we would watch it through Amazon. We have to do it on Derek's computer because it's a software that's actually on his computer, and then we use our HDMI to connect it to the TV. So it's not like we can go straight from our remote to the TV when we're using the clear play. That makes sense. What else? What are some things you see on this list that you might could begin to incorporate that you think would be helpful to help remind you of truths?
I like the filters on the devices.
Yes.
I've never used any of those.
Yes. And how easy is it for us to end up seeing something, or, and even not just seeing something, but I'm sure you guys heard the Surgeon General they are working to make a warning for social media for teens, because so many parents have voiced their concerns of the suicide rates and bullying and all the things that come along with social media with teenagers. So they're just now really starting to think through that process. And, we all know a Surgeon General warning doesn't keep people from smoking cigarettes or doing that, but at least it can communicate to the community, this is not a healthy thing. Let's take some steps to fix this. So we're all prone to addiction to our devices. They literally make it, if you look at the research, they make the devices. That's the reason why when you click, you can feel it click, because that feeling actually is like Pavlov's dog. It's somewhat of a slight reward. How many of you remember the feeling on a smartphone of toggling, like if you're scrolling to find your birth date, your birth year on something, and how it kind of ticks like that? All of those little things, research proves that it is addictive in nature. It causes us to almost like a slot machine. Like it's addictive. And then of course that feeling of missing out, the fear of missing out, FOMO or whatever it's called, it's a real thing. But because of seeing the broad spectrum of all these people's highlight moments on social media, or even just news articles. Maybe you're a Fox News junkie or a MSNBC junkie, and you feel like you're going to miss something if you don't constantly check it. It causes us to miss the moments that we have with the people that are really with us, because we're in this fake world, this two-dimensional world that's not even impacting us really, very, very minor. So I think we could all use some help with that. Time limits and all those things.